Welcome everybody
This meeting is being recorded.
This meeting is now being recorded. Matt just stepped on my line. Welcome back to another Applied You webinar brought to you by the Association for Applied and Clinical Sociology. I'm Gary David, a past president, a vice president-elect, also one of the people on the Professional Development Committee. And one of the things we like to do with these webinars is provide our members and non-members a chance to really understand what applied and clinical sociology is and what it means to do applied and clinical sociology. And really excited about today's presentation because it really hits home, I think, to what a lot of us got into sociology in the first place for, which is what we learned in the classroom in our sociology classes. I don't know if anybody goes to college seeking to become a sociologist, but I think that at some point along the way, something about what sociology is clicks with those of us who decided to pursue it as a profession and as a vocation. At the same time, so much of applied sociology, I would say, and I'm editorializing here, that gets lost, right? We kind of lose the doing of sociology and we get lost in the just studying of sociology. And for me, at least, I think for everyone here, sociology is meant to be about doing. And when I met these two gentlemen this past October at the AACS conference in Tigard, Oregon, I was really impressed by their presentation of how they took their academic major and turned it into an applied major. And as sociology seeks relevance continuously, and as a lot of departments are coming under pressure, especially right now around all the cuts that are going to be happening, I thought their message was really going to be important to bring to a broader audience so you could understand how it is that they went about doing their work. This webinar is being recorded. We will put it on our YouTube channel. And if anybody who's in attendance would like to ask questions, I just simply ask that you use the chat box located at the bottom of your screen. I will be monitoring the chat window, and at various points along the way, I will be asking the questions that you have asked Matt and Bob. And so without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Bob Oxley and Matthew Smith-Larman.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Gary. Let me see. Let's share my screen, huh? This one. That one, right.
There we go.
Wait. How's that? Is that working, Gary? Does that look okay for everybody like that?
Looks great.
All right. So a month or so ago, a redo of the presentation we gave last October in Oregon, and we were delighted to do so. So that's kind of what this is going to be. We'll go over a bit of a lot of what we did actually last October at the AACS meeting, but we're going to update it. That's why the slide says year 3. And all the pictures are different too. The students are now more modern students than the ones that have gone away. But we will update it. We'll say, well, what have we done? What have we added in the last year or 8 months that we didn't have before? How are things going? So we'll start with a little bit of history of the program, how we came to be. We'll talk about what we call the 3 pillars of our program, which we'll show you in a minute. So, Dixie State University's bachelor's degree in applied sociology, year 3. And I click and nothing happens. I click again and something happens. Bob will take the first slide.
All right. Hi, everybody. I guess the big question is, since we're about 3 in our 3rd year now, why were we here? And our 2 big words that we use all the time for our applied sociology program is both networking and knowledge. And we adopted a slogan about 3 or 4 years ago, and our slogan is enhance your human capital. And human capital is a combination of your education and real life experiences to improve upon your skills, and moving forward strictly from a sociological standpoint, it just made a lot of sense. So the idea came to us as a number of our students about 4 years ago came to us after they majored in sociology at Dixie State University and came back and said, hey, you guys did a great job. I was in the final 3 for the job, but when they asked me how much job experience or research experience do you have? They said none, which kind of pushed them out of the final three to get the job. And Matt and I looked at each other and said, you know, this is where applied sociology is all about. And Matt really came up with the idea. He said, well, let's take a look and see what applied sociology is. And so as a result of that, our program at Dixie State University was assembled and put together with the idea that both our students not only would have academic information in a pure sense, but networking through all of the offerings that we have as far as working out there in the real world, so that when they go through that interview process and that question comes up again about real life experience, they have it. And they can talk to their prospective employers right from the top of their head because they've actually experienced it. And so that added a lot of credibility. And we're kind of proud to say that here we are in year 3, and some of our graduates that have gone through the applied sociology program have relayed to us and saying those are the experiences they had when they were going for the organization that they wanted to become an employee of or a member of. So networking and knowledge, and our slogan again is enhance your human capital, which is a combination that really fits applied sociology.
What about that picture, Bob?
Well, this is a picture of our students up at UCR, which is the Utah Conference for Undergraduate Research. And it was at Utah State University. And the project that we worked on, which we'll talk about a little bit in our Institute for Social Research, we went up there with posters, and each of our individual students had categories within the research project itself. And there was representatives from across every college and university in the state of Utah, and our posters were there. And our slogan, I'll talk to you a little bit more about that, was we were looking at burnout. And what does that mean? I'll talk to you a little bit about that here later on in this presentation. But this is networking. This allows our students to interface with fellow students from different universities throughout the state of Utah and take a look at what research they're working on, as well as there was prospective employers there looking at this. And the number of these students that you see in this photo were actually talked to. And I'll talk to you a little bit about this, but as a result, a nonprofit actually came to us based on what they saw as far as our research thus far this year at UCR. And there are some monies that were put forth that I'll talk to you more in detail later on in the presentation. So again, networking and knowledge. And this is the UCR was a prime example of that this year.
Okay, how did we come to be? Well, back 2015, I was asked to put together, about my first 15 years at Dixie State University, I was the only sociologist. We had no major, no minor, nothing. I was approached to create a proposal for a bachelor's degree in sociology. So the summer of 15, I put that together, and through the fall of 2015 and early spring of 2016, it was rolling along. It was a bachelor's degree in sociology. There was no applied on it. It was just called sociology. And it went through our curriculum committees and our universities committee. It went through our board. No, it didn't make it. Everybody up until the board of trustees. In the spring of 2015, January, a new provost came on board at Dixie State University, Dr. LaCourse. And he's a fine guy. I like him fine now, but he rubbed me the wrong way for 1 week. When a few days before our proposal was to go before the board of trustees, we got a call and we said, your proposal, I've taken it off. I'm not going to put it before the board of trustees. I'm like, what? You know, everything had gone just fine, perfectly. Everybody said, this is a great proposal. In fact, they were sharing my proposal with other programs that wanted to start up. So what was wrong? So we had a hasty meeting with the provost. We got together with him, and he said that the trustees are concerned. How can you get a job in sociology? We're not going to give you a degree if people can't get a job. And so I said, all right, if you say so. I'll take it back, I said, and we'll rework on it, and we'll meet again in a couple of months. And if you will please, I said to the provost, ask the trustees, what are they looking for really? So we went back we were disappointed. We were bruised up a little bit. And June of 2016, we went back to the provost, still without a proposal. We hadn't really put anything together yet, but I want to know, what did you learn for the trustees? What do they want? And he was still pretty down. He's like, I don't know, sociology just doesn't sound like, and it clicked in my head. I remembered, hey, I have a master's degree in applied sociology from Northern Arizona University. So I said, what, in this meeting in June, what if we call it and change it a little bit, make it applied sociology? And immediately his eyes lit up and he looked at it and says, what does that mean? I said, well, we'll add an internship and we'll emphasize research. And he really liked that. And he said, yes, that's what we'll do. So in the course of one meeting in June, he was still down. I said applied, and all of a sudden he was on board 100%. And he said, okay, take your proposal back, work on it over the summer, and bring it back to us in the fall as an applied degree. And that's what we did. We added an internship program, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this presentation. We added an emphasis on methodology, which we'll talk about. It says here from academic to applied, and I don't think those have to be mutual theory. We have theory classes, social psychology classes. We have courses on inequality and organizations. We still have a strong sociological academic sociological component to our program. We've just added this more applied part to it as well, so that they can take their academics and what they've learned in class and apply it in real life situations. So that's the history. And we are now a 3-person department. I don't know if Gary, if you could just briefly unmute Dr. Mohammed Yildiz as our 3rd person so people can see him, and just for a moment, and he can wave and say hello to the crowd. Dr. Yildiz is our quantitative guy. He teaches statistics classes. There he is. Hello, Dr. Yildiz.
Hello, everyone.
We are the 3 amigos right there that run the program. We also have a number of adjuncts, and Whitlock I saw is on here. He's our advisor as well. So we're still a relatively small program. We have 45 majors. Oh, there's children. See, he's going to hire next year. We're between 40 and 45 students at this point. As you see, we have 3 full-timers. We have 3 adjuncts working with us. But we're pushing that. We want another instructor because our classes are getting pretty full for the fall. So that's the history of our program. What's next? So this is how we've structured the program here. You can see we have these core classes here: math, introduction to sociology, which is our only prereq is intro to, math 1040, which is a statistics class, is a prereq to take statistics. We have your basic academic sociology core: introduction, research methods, statistics, sociological theory. And then the other core classes, the applied sociology internship is one of the things that really makes it an applied program, and a capstone course. So there's only 21 core credits. And then we have 24 elective credits. So overall, and this is another thing that the administration really kind of likes, is that there aren't a lot of required credits. There are majors on campus that are up 60, 70 required credits to get the major. Ours is relatively low, and we like it that way too, because it gives a lot of flexibility to our students. So we have these a number of elected courses. You can see many of them theoretical: gender, stratification, social psychology. We have some fun ones: the sociology of rock music, which I teach once in a while. I'll talk about the methods classes in a minute. Importantly, down here, we have these 3 different ways students can do kind of an individualized independent study kind of thing. We have independent study, directed research, and practicum. And those are ways that students who aren't finding what they need here in the regular classes, we can work with them individually as instructors. Bob, in a moment, will talk about the Institute of Social Research, where students are doing a lot of directed research credits, where students come to the instructor and the instructor guides them through some research. I had a student last semester and she was doing research at some nursing homes in the community. And she couldn't figure out how to fit it in some of her other classes, so I did a directed research with her, and she did a survey and did some ethnography, etc. Practicum is a lot like an internship, except it's not called an internship, but students go out into the community and get credit for applying sociology in the community. If you ever want to jump in, Bob or Gary, I know I haven't. Gary, would you like to say anything, Gary?
There was a question. How do you distinguish between intro to stats and social stats?
Intro to stats, this math 1040 right here, all students in the university have to take some lower level math class. And so we and the psychology department at Dixie does as well. I don't know if criminal justice, but they require this math 1040 before they can take. Social statistics is more geared towards sociology specifically. We like them to have a general introduction to statistics to get into that as a prereq. So we don't teach introduction to stats. That's taught in the math department. It's generally freshmen and sophomores, I assume, that take that.
Great, thanks.
Mohammed,
I'm sorry.
I was Mohammed, since he teaches our stats class. If he
let me unmute Mohammed here, and we can say if he wants to add anything else. Mohammed, do you have anything else you wanted to add about that?
Actually, yes, the Math 1040 and my social statistics class are a little bit similar. But there are two main differences. In my hypothesis, examples, questions, hypothesis, etc., I use social examples, hence it's called social statistics. I ask questions related to sociology in nature. Another difference is that I introduce them to statistical software. Sometimes it's SPSS, sometimes it's data. So, it adds more applied aspects to statistics that students can kind of learn basic and a little bit advanced statistical techniques to apply to their sociological questions, sociological in nature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Another quick question I have, or a point to consider, is the school I'm at, private business school. We don't have a major, but we do have an internship. And one of the things that I do as directing the internship is I might have a student doing work at an accounting firm or at a marketing firm. I have them study that work, that organization, that workplace from a sociological perspective. And so, because otherwise we really would have a hard time placing people into internships because we don't have any majors. So I'm curious if you could talk about, the internship, where are the placements, how do you place people primarily in human services? Do you place them in business? Right. What kind of opportunities are available that expose them to a wide breadth of potential professional opportunities that may not be traditionally associated with a sociology major?
Can you hold off like 4 or 5 slides, Gary, when we get to our internship slide?
I'm listening. I do conversation analysis. I'm listening to that question as a request. So yes, I can wait.
We'll get to that in just a minute. We have that slide.
Perfect. Thank you.
We talk about internships. So when we created the program, we thought of it as having 3 pillars, 3 important cornerstones to building our program. And we've pretty much realized all of these. We have a certificate in social research methods, and we're going to talk about each of those. We have a slide for each of these. We have an institute for social research, and we have a nonprofit management major. So the certificate in social research methods, this is available to anybody on campus, no matter what their major, but it's a really easy one for the sociology students to get. You can see, right, most of the requirements here are already for sociology students are already taken. An introduction to statistics, introduction to sociology, research methods, social statistics, applied sociology majors are already required to take those classes. Then we've added two electives, survey research and data analysis, which Dr. Yildiz teaches, and I teach the qualitative research methods. Do all those, 18 credits, and you get a certificate in social research methods. Just this last semester, we've updated, so one of the problems, I guess, we've been having is students don't seem to be as excited about this certificate as we are. And these last two classes, survey and data analysis and qualitative research methods, aren't filling up as much as we'd like. We'd like to see more students doing this. So we've opened it up to the psychology and criminal justice people as well. So now students can take research methods in either sociology or psychology or criminal justice, and it'll count towards this. They can take statistics from the psychology statistics or the sociology statistics. We've opened it up to try and encourage more students, because we think this is a great skill for students to have. And there are no end to the amount of research that business organizations, nonprofit organizations, whoever, they're always doing research, and students coming out of this will get a good understanding of how to create, implement, analyze, present surveys, how to do interviews, how to do ethnographic research. We think, you know, this is how to run it through SPSS, etc. So we think this is a really great program, a great certificate that gives our students some really applied skills, and it's part of course, why we call it applied sociology, because they're going to be able to go out there, and we believe, and conduct real life research. And they do this and we have them, of course, in survey research, qualitative research. They create their own surveys, they administer these surveys. Qualitative research, they're out there observing and then when they go in their internships, they use a lot of this in their capstone projects. They use a lot of these skills as well. So that's the certificate in social research. And now that I've talked a lot, it's time for me to take a break, and I'll turn it over to Bob to talk about the Institute of Social Research and the nonprofit management minor.
Thanks, Matt. This is going to be entering the third year this fall, the third year for the Institute for Social Research. And this goes back to the way we began this webinar, talking about networking and knowledge. And the Institute was as a result of two of my classes. One was research methods 3 years ago, and the other students in my stratification class. And they were so hungry to actually participate in real research that I said, well, why don't we consider putting together the Institute for Social Research, and we'll bring them on as direct research. In other words, they would get credit to be involved in some real life research. So in 2019 or 2018, we put together the Institute for Social Research at Dixie State University through the Applied Sociology program. And what we did was, I allowed this team, this ISR team, which is our acronym for it, to say, what do you want to do research on? And what came out of the opening 2 or 3 sessions through some brainstorming was that they said, what's it like to be a single mother with 2 preschool children and attending Dixie State University as a full-time student? What is the really quality of life initiative that falls under this? So as a result of that, that's what we did. We actually put together, gained some information as far as a single mother with a 3- and 4-year-old attending Dixie State University as a full student, and what is the true cost, in other words, quality of life that must be obtained on a given 1-year basis. And that was the research. The research went after quality of life as far as, if you got a flat tire and you had quality of life, did you have enough savings whereby you could buy a new wheel or a new tire? Or did you have to cut back on something else, like possibly food or whatever? What about the cost of attending Dixie State University as a full-time student, the cost of having your children taken care of in childcare facilities? And what's the cost like that? What's the cost for transportation? What's the cost for food and clothing and all of those particulars? And that was our research. And so in the fall of 2018, we completed that research. We actually had a survey taken, and we got some feedback, as well as we did our own literature review on that. And it was very interesting, the results that came out of that, whereby for a single mother with 2 preschool children, for quality of life, how much money it actually required. And there was 3 buckets for them to survive and to fall under this quality of life determinant that we had come up with. And it would be grants far as for the students itself. So we would look at what information, what charters and what information is charitable information is out there for students. What kind of financial programs could Dixie State University apply? And also, did you work? And this particular student, we came up with, she worked at Burger King. So her income there, and the combination of those three buckets still did not come up to the quality of life financial income that we declared for quality of life, which was an interesting study. The following spring, the new ISR team came together, and they wanted to do research on what's it like to be a freshman coming into Dixie State University, and what's the true cost, and from a sociological standpoint, friendships, new way of thinking, attending college for the first time, all of those particulars came in. So we had surveys that were put together for that also. We had an 18-year-old from Utah and an 18-year-old female from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And these two fictitious students, they came up and we did a complete analysis on that. And it was very interesting, the results. What's encouraging for becoming a member of the Institute for Social Research is not only are you involved in actually putting together research from the time you start doing your literary review, but actually determining what research you want to do. And at the end, what we do is we actually have our own Institute for Social Research. It's published, copyrighted, ISBN, and I've got a copy of it here. This was last year. So every year the journal comes out in July. So you actually are published, which is part of your portfolio. Not only are you involved in actual research and the experiences of that research, but you're actually published. So that is a total portfolio that goes into the Dixie State University portfolio for your prospective organization that you want to work for. So when we said here in our mission statement, create, implement, and analyze social science research of concern for members of our community, it truly was. We were really focused. Present the findings of this research to interested community members. We do that. Not only do we publish it at the end of the academic year in a formal journal, but also throughout the year we attend various professional organizations and present posters. UCR, I mentioned to you earlier, the Utah Conference for Undergraduate Research. We actually are interfacing with prospective employers as well as colleges and universities from across the state of Utah. And also on our own campus here at Dixie State University, every April, they have our undergraduate research group puts together a symposium. So now we're being able to show off our information locally to all the community because it's open to the public. So not only are you involved with research, but you're actually being given opportunities to present that research in formal settings. And at the end of the ISR, you are having your research published with your fellow team members under a project. So it's been interesting. So that first formal year, 18 to spring of 2019, and then this last year, what we've done in year 3 is we opened it up like we normally do as to what do you want to do research on. And one of our students came up and said, I was just made aware of the World Health Organization in May of 2019 just declared that burnout is indeed a disease and there's symptoms. Why don't we analyze burnout? And so that's what we did with my thinking that we're just going to do a 1 semester research project on this. But what we found out, there was so much information and so much interest. And we found out that we were like really a trailblazer on this in that a lot of people have not done that. It was brand new. Then our students really got involved. And then we designed a survey for Dixie State University on burnout. And so we had 2 sets of surveys. One survey went to the student body, of which 12% were represented, and we coordinated all that, and our team had that experience also. And then we had another survey that was targeted at the administration, faculty, and the staff. And so the combination of those two, we took those results and we put them together, and we're just in the final proofreading segment of that whole operation now for this whole year of research on burnout. And we're having so much interest This burnout information has been presented at UCR. It has been presented through virtual conferences because of the COVID-19 situation, but our students are right on top of this, and this is going to be published the end of June, the results from this finding. Now, if I can, and Matt, I'm sorry I'm taking too long here, but I'd just like to the next step. The fall of 2020, this fall, we've had so much desire and interest from outside resources, can't wait to see what our results are on burnout, that we as a group had our first meeting this week for the ISR team coming up this upcoming academic year. And we've been asked to take a look at our findings and then try to find out what solutions do we have for burnout, since we've identified what burnout is and the ramifications to that. Now, what's interesting about this is when we were up at UCR, we were approached by a nonprofit organization that is truly interested in this, and they have federal funds that they would like to hire out the ISR to do some work for them and do the research. So this was very exciting for us, and my students had the experience of seeing, because of the interest that they're stimulating in a lot of people on this particular topic, how important their research is. So another benefit. So when I look at point 3 on the screen, where it says train future generations of social scientists in the creation, implementation, analysis, and presentation of appropriate research methodologies, that's what this team's all about. That's exactly what we accomplished over this last year. We accomplished every one of those points that were made in number 3 here, because our students can talk the talk. They've done it. They've been there. They realize what's important, and all the ramifications that were a result of their efforts are going to reap dividends for them, of which some of those members of our team this year have graduated. So they're out there already. And so they've really made a name for themselves. So that's the Institute for Social Research. It's exciting. It's a team situation. The one thing that I want just to relay to you is this truly is an undergraduate team situation. And so I've taken the stance whereby I make suggestions, but I allow the final decision-making process to be the team. And that's the one thing I have found out that really allows them to think, justify their thoughts, then adopt those things and move forward. Are they always right? No, but that's the learning experience, and that's what the ISR is all about.
Great, Bob. If I can, we have 3 questions lined up. If I could ask them,
Sure,
as you were talking. Sure. So one question is, how do you place students in internships? Does the university have a career placement office? And this is all from one person. Then there's 2 other questions. Does the department have pretty regular and reliable partnerships with local businesses? So that's one set of questions.
Okay, look, can I address those, Gary?
Sure.
Okay, the answer is yes. We do have, the university has established a operation, one of the departments that we have here that does have whatever your interest is, and it can be in the social sciences or sociology specific, whereby they have a whole list of companies and what they're looking for, and they make a determination of what your areas of expertise are and what you like and don't like. And so we do have an active department, which is relatively new,
Great.
To Dixie State. So we do have that. Plus, as a result, we have also, because of our, well, how can I put it? Because of what people have found out about the ISR and about the applied sociology program just by word of mouth through local nonprofits, and our students actually being participants in those, for instance, NAMI or SwitchPoint, and a lot of these things, it's just by word of mouth, and our students have made such a positive impression that really does lend itself to openings for future students in the applied sociology program.
Great. And on a follow-up question about the ISR, another question from Richard was, does it have a budget? If so, how much, and where do the funds come from?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a good question. Let me tell you about that. What we did was we applied for, there was the undergraduate research group on campus because the university really wants research to be expanded upon cross disciplines. And so there's an opportunity for us to apply for both operational grant and for a travel grant. When I say a lot, there's like $500 for operations and $1,000 for travel to take our team out to do presentations. And then outside monies come in. We have different benefactors that come in and contribute a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. And so it's taken us, and we were brand new. So the first 2 years was really tough. Okay. Fortunately, we had a couple of people on campus through their departments liked what we were doing, and we were open to all disciplines, even though the majority of the members of the ISR team are applied sociology majors. And so that's how we squeezed through for the first 2 years. This upcoming year is exciting because we're learning. We have to plan so far in advance to put in our proposals as to what the research is going to be, and we have to fulfill the stipulations stated on their application forms to get grants. And plus what just happened to us last spring up in Euchre, we're going to have some a little bit of grant monies there. So we have been awarded grant money for the upcoming year, so that's an internal. And now we have an individual administrator here at Dixie State that is there to help us identify grants that are available for us, both local, state, and federal grants. And so we're just going to start doing that now. So there's a lot of different avenues here. We have a nonprofit that's come forward and said we want Dixie, the ISR, to do the research for us, and it's going to be on burnout. And the idea is, their idea is to get people into a different environment to resolve, or at least allow the individual to resolve a burnout situation for themselves. That's good, but we are also looking for other types of research because of the COVID-19 situation. We don't know how viable that is. So they're aware of that. They still want us to do the research for them. So there's a little bit of money there. We did get a grant internally, and we put another application out for some outside funds also. And we still have benefactors that are willing to give us some funds to help with the operation to keep it going because they believe in the ISR. So.
I would add to this that real quick, Matt, just to follow up, you all should be charging them consulting fees because the first two projects for sure are around student experience. The last one is around employee experience. And I can tell you that clients will pay a lot of money, because I've seen it, for that kind of research you're doing. So I would suggest possibly giving them a bill and then with a discount so they know what kind of value they're getting, because they're getting some really important information that they would pay an outside firm a lot of money for if they had to.
And Gary, that was brought up by this particular nonprofit up at the Euchre in February. They said, you guys don't realize how good you are. You don't, that was brought out to not only myself, but to our students on the team. So that made them feel good. And you're absolutely right. But again, when you start something out new, you've got to establish yourself. You've got to provide evidence. So by having our second journal just coming out here next month, that's reflective of the actual types of research with all the graphs and charts and all the write-up and actually the surveys themselves are part of the journal. So people that get a hold of this really say this ISR is for real. So it's hard. It's really tough the first 2 or 3 years to get yourself established.
Another really
I'm
quick
going to push
question.
us along to the next slide, Gary. If we want to get this in an hour, we have a couple more slides to go.
Great, let's do it.
And so this is Bob too. This is the nonprofit management minor, which is an important part of our program as well. Right,
and this one here is important in that they they're certified in nonprofit management. It's a minor that we went through the whole process. And those of you know, I don't know exactly what your own experience is on your respective campuses, but for us, realistically, to introduce anything, the process takes about 1 year. So you're planning 1 year in advance. So we did get approval last year for a nonprofit management minor, and these are the courses that it's open to the entire campus, but applied sociology oversees the operation, oversees the certification. even though it's open to the entire campus. And if you notice the courses here, we have across the board, we have business, accounting, management, we have sports management, we have sociology, we have just two classes there, but because it was our innovation, our idea, it was very well received. And so we're getting a lot of students from across different disciplines being introduced to sociology, and we're getting a lot of positives as a result of that. Plus, we're looking at nonprofit management, which is the fastest growing segment in the United States, nonprofits at this particular time. So we took advantage of that research and our own. It went right through the entire Board of Trustees here on campus and went up to our state Board of Education that gave us their approvals also. And then it had to go out to getting the accreditation from the Northwest, which it did also. So it's an accredited course. It's a minor. You can declare yourself nonprofit management, which is great. The other thing that's evolved here is that you can, with the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance, the NLA, which is an organization based in Kansas City, Missouri. It's national. It has 40 colleges and universities. In our particular region here in Utah, north of us, BYU, Brigham Young University is a member, as well as to the south is Arizona State. So west of the Mississippi, there's very few. Most of the colleges and universities aligned are east. But one of the requirements is that if you want to get your CNP, the Certified Nonprofit Professional, which is a 3-letter designation that goes after your name, you must attend their Management Institute, okay, which was held this last January in Kansas City. And the picture you see there is myself with those nonprofit management students that are working on getting their CNP, of which 3 of those students did receive their Certified Nonprofit Professional upon graduation. So the reason we're doing this is it coincides with the fastest growing. We're looking for jobs. We're looking for experience. And again, let me go back to where we started with networking and knowledge. Now you're talking to prospective employees from a national standpoint. You're talking to other colleges and universities across the country getting this. And by getting that CNP designation, you're one of only 10,500 active CNPs in the entire country. And what that means is to people that, to the nonprofits, is that if they are looking at your portfolio and trying to make a determination of who to hire, when you have that CNP after your name, that automatically tells them that they have fulfilled a very rigorous prescription and 300 hours of service, nonprofit service, that has to coincide with that is part of our nonprofit minor, but this is an option on top of that. This is what gives them evidence as to why they'll get the job. And remember, that's why we started out. We said knowledge and applied sociology, and we want to provide them information and coursework academically, as well as real life experiences that allows them to get the job that they desire. And so that's kind of like our motto. And this particular nonprofit management minor, as well as the optional Certified Nonprofit Professional certification, really is an opportunity for our students to really move forward. And I know that the 3 graduates have already been contacted, so I'm excited for them.
It's important to say how we encourage our students to link all of these things together too. So they take their survey research class and their qualitative research class. They go take that to the ISR, and they use their skills in the ISR. They bring that to their internship and do research in the internship. They come to their capstone class. And so they're doing a lot of the research on the same things through all these classes. And we encourage that when they first get there. You know, we tell them they don't have to come up with completely new research projects for every class they take. We want them to take their skills across different classes. So what have we done in the last year? Well, we with the knowledge and networking, we've done these 2 things. One, we were able to get our students to start an applied sociology club. You can see the picture, that's kind of the administration the board of the Applied Sociology Club. And they've done a great job. They meet once a week before school got out anyway, and there'd be 15 or 20 people at every meeting. They show, you know, sociologically relevant films. They hosted Black Lives Matter on campus. They are a very active club, even though they really just got started in the last 6 months, and they've been doing a great job of just creating a sense of community among our students. They do lots of social events too. They go out hiking and camping and such things. And then we also became a member, Zeta of Utah, of Alpha Kappa Delta, which goes along again with the networking part especially. You know, we inducted our first 7 students this past spring into Alpha AKD. A number of students for the ISR, they were going to present at the Pacific Sociological Association, which got canceled, of course, but 3 or 4 of the students were able to get grant money, travel money from Alpha Kappa Delta, $200 each to travel. We have students submitting their papers for Alpha Kappa Delta has, you know, paper competitions where you can win money. So it's another way to try and professionalize our students and get them out there in the world beyond Dixie State University, competing, getting our name out there of the school. And that's always been a goal of ours is, you know, we want people, and we thank you, Gary, for actually recognizing us. That one of our goals has always been, you know, we want people to know that there's an applied sociology program at Dixie State University and to think of us when they think of applied sociology. And these are some of the ways that we've been doing that, including webinars like this. A number of people have asked about internships and how we run them. So students are required to do a 3-credit internship, which is like 90 hours, their senior year. For the most part, the students choose on their own. I have a pile of business cards that if a student is not sure where they want to do it, we can go over that. The Career Center at Dixie State University can help them out, but for the most part, they find their own. Here's a list on this slide of some of the places our students have done internships. We do have a pretty close relationship here with the Southwest Behavioral Health Center. We've had a number of students do both practicums and internships there. Logan Reed, who was a student of mine at one point, he works at Southwest Behavior. He's a really good contact for us there. They do, you know, a drug counseling, mental health work in the community, a nonprofit. You can see, you know, a lot of nonprofits on there. American Civil Liberties Union, AAUW, etc. So we really try to focus. Well, we let the students choose, but they tend to gravitate toward nonprofits for the most part. Bob, I don't know if you want to take just a minute or two and talk about Emma's work with the American Association.
Sure do, Matt. One of my students this year, for her internship, I was aware that the AAUW was very active, and the St. George chapter was very active, and I was approached by them, and they said, "You know of a student that would be interested in doing an internship with us?" And I said, "I sure do." And Emma, I approached Emma. I said, "I've got an opportunity for you to work in an internship, and this is real life." I said, "This is one of the most active chapters in the entire country. It would be a great opportunity." And so she went, and she applied for that, and she was accepted. And so as a result, her experience with the AUW, they had her sit in on the board meetings. They also put her in charge with 2 other people from the AUW of voter registration for women in the St. George, Utah area, as well as Dixie State University. And then at the end, she did such a spectacular job. Plus, she helped set up their brand new computer system. And this is one of the most active chapters in the AUW nationally. And they were so impressed with him. We got invited to their awards ceremony, and I attended that. And I was sitting with Emma at the table, and it was very, very nice. Next thing I know, on the screen, he said, "I think you'll like this." And here's Emma up there on a video that they had made, proclaiming that this was one of the best experiences they've ever had. She promoted the applied sociology program. And then everybody got tears in their eyes because she just said, "I want to tell you how important this is to me because I'm the first child in my family that will graduate from college. And there wasn't a dry eye in the place. And so now they're going to promote that. That's a promotional video that she's involved with. She was involved in voter registration. She was involved in setting up new computers for the AAUW. Plus, she did such an outstanding job, they put her into attending a statewide AAUW meeting, and then she would represent the state of Utah to their national meeting. So I'm very proud of her, but just can you imagine the experiences and networking that she has now as a result of that? And so she definitely is now a member of the AAUW because she just graduated. So anyway, that's just one of our great stories. All these we have wonderful stories for every one of these points that are listed here. Thanks, Matt.
I'm going to do our last slide, Gary, real quick, and then we can field the questions if you don't mind. I think this is pretty much our last slide. Students end in their last semester, excuse me, I don't talk this much usually, doing a capstone project. And as I said, we encourage them throughout their career to be looking forward to this capstone project, to be thinking in the research and activities that they're doing in their other courses, to finishing it off with an article in the capstone project. And here's a list on this slide of some of the articles, papers students have written for our capstone course. And some of them come directly out of their internships. For instance, the trauma and healthcare workers, we had a student, Sandra, she's already a licensed practical nurse, and she did a survey in the healthcare agency she works. She did a survey of doctors and nurses and about trauma that they receive, because these are people who are treating other patients with trauma. What kind of trauma does that reflect back on the nurses and the doctors? And so she did a survey, and she turned this into a very nice paper for the capstone course. Another student did, the one that I mentioned earlier, she did research at nursing homes, and specifically the dietary departments in nursing homes, where she did ethnography and surveys there and deep interviews there, and came out with a nice paper about the needs of dietary care places in Utah. So we try, capstone, and I know we talked about this actually back in October, Gary, where some of the people raised their hands and they say, well, why do you have them write papers? Why don't you have them do something else? And I think about that a lot, and I still haven't, I would love some advice from some of you applied sociologists of options to writing a traditional sociological paper article, which is where we're still kind of at right now. I'd love to hear some suggestions from y'all. I do have one more slide I forgot, and that is, what are our graduates doing now? We haven't had a lot. We're only in our third year. We've had about 10, 12 total graduates, but they're in a wide range of fields. These are people with bachelor's degrees. We have a guy who got us a practicing CNA, a student who works at the Department of Veteran Affairs. He's also working towards a marriage and family therapy degree. A practicing LPN, and she's also been admitted to a Master of Social Work program. We have another student. Some of our students take a traditional sociology track. She's getting her MA in sociology from Arizona State University. So our students are finding jobs, and there's no such thing as a sociology job really out there, but they're finding jobs where they are practicing and applying their sociology in real life settings in a variety of them. So that's our show, and there we are.
Great.
We'd be happy. I'll be happy if anybody wants this slideshow. I'll be happy to email it to you if you want. I think we are now ready for questions, Gary.
Great, fantastic. Thanks so much. And there's the contact information, which you so generously provided. A few questions, and I know people might be up against time or not given the lockdown. Maybe you're looking for a way to get distracted from your family and your children. I know I am. So we'll take about another 10 minutes to chat about these next questions, because there's some really good ones in here. One question from Thomas is, how do you navigate IRB with all of these programs?
I'm going to let Bob take that one, because with the ISR, they do a lot of IRB navigating.
Yeah. IRB, we just had our first meeting with the upcoming for this year's ISR team. And we already are going to start working on the IRB proposal for them to review. We want to have that done to them by the first week of August. Our classes get underway, I think it's August the 24th. And so we don't want to get into a delaying factor with the IRB. So we're looking at gaining approvals for the project that we're working on so we can move quickly, because just applying for different presentations and abstract requirements, if we're not into the research if we don't have at least 60 days of research on this project, then our students that have selected various categories of expertise, they have to write an abstract for their poster or for their presentations at these different venues that are open to them. So we're aware of that. So you have to start very much in advance. IRB is being put together right now, believe it or not. We opened it up 2 days ago, and we're already starting to work on the IRB. We have a great relationship with the IRB.
You learned that through experience, didn't you, Bob? The first 2 years, there was a couple of times where you had to slow down because it hadn't gone through the IRB.
Yeah, what happened was, I'll give you this is a real life example. This happened. You have it took away from the momentum that we had going. The team was working very hard last fall when we were aware that the burnout research was going to continue on throughout the entire academic year. We're moving forward. And I had a good relationship with the chair of the IRB. And so it was one of those situations whereby we had proven ourselves from the year before, and I was made aware of what we were planning on doing. And I had some simplistic little write-up, not a formal proposal. And then unfortunately he passed away, and a new chair came on board, and she immediately put a freeze on everything. And she said, "Where is your formal proposal?" So that put a hold on everything that we had done. We went into scramble mode as a team, put together a proposal, and then that was over the holidays, the December holidays break. And fortunately, I went in and talked and presented the proposal to her, and she said, this sounds really interesting. And so fortunately for us, then she got 2 other members of the IRB team to review, and we got the approvals. But what it did was it put a screeching halt on the momentum that we had moving forward. Fortunately, we had such a strong team that we picked up the pieces. But to say that it didn't have a negative effect on the team, it did. It was like, wait a minute, we had things planned to get done, and now we got to hold until we get the approvals. So we learned from that, and that's what Matt's referring to. I learned from that, and they did too. So that's why we're starting our proposal right now, so that we'll have all the necessary approvals and the numerical assignment for approval, so we can move forward with the research right from the get-go when we launch in August.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Another question, and we're almost out of time, but a plug for CAPAX. Have you talked to the Commission for the Accreditation of Programs in Applied and Clinical Sociology? I think I actually got all of it right in that acronym. Have you chatted with them about becoming an accredited program?
We have chatted with them, and we're in negotiations. How's that
Diplomatic. I like that. I like negotiations.
Yeah, that's my diplomatic answer. We're not. I mean, they charge money, and we have a dean, and we have to get money from our dean, and the dean has to get money from the provost, and now the economy's stinking, But we have actively looked into that. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, given your experience and persuasion with the provost, Matt, I have no doubt that you'll be able to secure those much needed funds, regardless of the climate. Any other questions that we could provide? We have a few others up here. This is an interesting one. I've never thought about this, but has AAC, it's more of a, and Matt, can you stop sharing your screen so we can kind of see everybody? And I'll open up my video. There was a question about, has AACS ever considered developing a formally recognized applied sociology organization similar to AKD? AKD isn't open to community colleges. No, we have not. But I like the question, and one of the things that we are prioritizing even more than we have in the past, is a focus on how to help students with their professional development and their growth in the profession. And I think that the major part of this webinar was to demonstrate how you can turn through, a lot of work, but not necessarily a lot of changes. You turn your program into an applied sociology program, or I should say applied and clinical. If I don't throw the clinical in there, I get in trouble from people like Jan Fritz and Tina Ice. They get very angry with me if I don't say clinical. So applied and clinical program, so that your students and your administration can see the viability and the relevance of sociology, not just as a filler course for gen ed requirements, but also as a pathway for making important differences in the world of work, but also in society as well, which is the reason why I believe most of us, if not all of us, got into this racket in the first place.
Sure. And I think our students are loving this, and we're loving this too. I mean, like I said, I was for 15 years, teaching. We were a community college when I got there. I was teaching lower division sociology, and I was honestly getting burned out. And all of a sudden, this new thing came about. I'm like, yeah, this is fun. We're doing sociology every day. Real sociology, active, applied, not clinical. I'm sorry, we're not a clinical program, but we are an applied program.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, and without going into the weeds on this, clinical sociology is about designing interventions, and those interventions can be for individuals, organizations, communities, and the like, and institutions. So, there's discussions to be had whether or not it's clinical and what makes something clinical. Maybe another webinar. But I do understand.
Right. In fact, in most of the papers I assign, there's now a section, what recommendations could you give? So you study whatever, a healthcare agency, what recommendations could you have for making this an even better place than it already is?
Love it. That's so important.
And just to add on the ISR, what we're working on is burnout. What are solutions? Right. And our outside nonprofit is saying that if we get these people out of their environment that causes burnout, is that going to be a stepping stone for them? So, could that be on the fringe?
I think so. And I think in this period of Zoom and doom, where we're all kind of getting burned out on the virtual environment, there's plenty to research. So I want to thank both of you for taking the time, for providing this presentation. I will also say that we will be doing a workshop. The plans are in the works to do a workshop with Matt and Bob at our virtual AACS conference. We're not having an in-person conference this year. We're having a virtual conference during a week in October. And part of our plan is to have a workshop for those who would like to get together with Matt, with Bob, with others, and actively talk about constructing applied and or clinical programs at your institutions. So go to aacsnet.net to find information about our virtual conference. And this year, I think I can say this, I hope I'm not getting into trouble because our president, Karen Albright, is on this webinar, that the cost of the conference is included with the cost of your membership. So it's all inclusive. You become a member of AACS, you get access to the conference this year. So quite a bargain, and we hope to see virtually a lot of you there. And we'll be making those materials available behind our membership paywall on our website. And I also want to say that we'll have plenty of other programs available at that conference, and we will have this workshop, this webinar, I should say, at our Applied U YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, look at Applied U, you will find our previous webinars that we've done. I believe this is around number 15 in our series or so. A lot of great content, a lot of great examples of people doing applied and clinical sociology from across a lot of different professions. So make sure you share those with your students, make sure you share those with your faculty, and definitely spread the word about applied and clinical sociology. And if you have any recommendations for a future webinar, you can always reach out to me, Gary David, gdavid@bentley.edu, and I'd be happy to entertain those. So thanks again, Bob. Thanks again, Matt. Really appreciate all the time and effort you put into this. And I appreciate everybody who was on the call for taking the time to come and hear about how you can hopefully save sociology and save your sociology program with applied and clinical sociology. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.